Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight, as we do every last Wednesday of the month, is Viewers Edition, and this is the 28th version of Viewers Edition. And many of you know, it is where you, the viewers, select topics for the resident panelists on The Square to discuss. So the key topics that we're going to focus on tonight that our have a look and examine the recently released World Happiness Report and what this means for Rwanda, especially looking at Rwanda's standing. And we're also going to look at the impact of the car-free zones, the recently established car-free zones in Remera and Nyamirambo, based on what recommendations of viewers put forward. My name is Diana PC, host of The Square. As always, I'm joined by The Square's resident panelists. Brenda Namata, great to have you on the show. Great. And usually we're joined by Charles Haba. Charles is not with us today. I'm told he's somewhere on the continent, but I'm sure he'll be tuning in and joining us on our social media feed. And to our guests, to our viewers, please keep the comments coming using hashtag #TheSquareRW on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram social media platforms. So the first topic up is the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The theme is delivering a common future, connecting, innovating, and transforming. This highly anticipated event that was postponed twice due to the COVID pandemic is happening in Kigali on the week of 20th June. So, Brenna, my question to you, what we're going to discuss tonight, and also on behalf of our viewers, your expectations for CHOGM 2022. In addition to, the global issues the heads of states are scheduled to discuss, as well as representatives, I would also like to hear from you in terms of your expectations on the Rwandan private sector and how it can position itself to really reap the benefits for this highly anticipated and very broad, in terms of representation, event happening in Rwanda.
Okay. First of all, I think there's a lot of excitement.
There is.
2 years is such a long time to wait. And the excitement is at different levels. One, it's the first time that Rwanda will be hosting as a member of CHOGM. And also, I think it will be the first major event after, I don't know whether we can say after COVID. We still have COVID.
We're still in the pandemic, yes.
Yeah, the first major event, but even more importantly, we are beginning to see countries announce who will be heading their delegation. To Rwanda, we know the Prince of Wales is coming with his wife. The UK Prime Minister will be here. So it's really exciting at different levels. But also to mention that we've seen Rwanda Development Board organize sessions ahead of time for the private sector. And I think they've taken it so seriously that they've organized sessions for almost every sector. And these have been going on. I'm not sure if they're done, but they've been having sessions with the private sector, which is really good. Yeah, but beyond that, I think everyone should look at it as an opportunity, as a business opportunity, because ahead of the meeting itself, the heads of state, you have events that happen leading to the events, to the main event. So you have the Commonwealth Business Council meeting, CEOs high-level meeting before. And then within the Commonwealth, there are different civil society organizations, so there will be also a CSO forum. There's a youth forum. So it's quite huge. It's quite huge, and I'm very lucky. I'm privileged to have attended one CHOGM in Uganda, I think in the
2007?
2007 or 2008?
Well, around that time, yes.
It's really huge. It's really huge. I mean, you talk about this and perhaps people haven't seen as many people. If everything goes according to plan.
And heads of state, scheduled to have 53 heads of state
Yes.
coming through, so it's really big, right?
It's really, really big.
Yes, yes.
It's really, really big, and the logistics of that, yeah. Now, on the government side, I mean, they've been ready. Like, we had, at the East African, we had an interview with the British High Commission, and he said he has a lot of confidence in what the government is doing and the level of preparedness. And we've had teams come. So, on the logistics side and government,
You're not worried?
No.
Okay.
Not worried at all. But in terms of our private sector, really looking at this as an opportunity to do business, maybe come back also. Remember, many of them, especially around the service sector, tourism, they're still struggling from the pandemic. So it's a good window. 3 weeks, perhaps, of activity, delegations coming in. So, but how you position that? I wish Charlie was here to talk about, describe what is needed outside the conference rooms. Last week we were talking about the nightlife in what we need. So I feel that for our private sector, beyond the business partnerships that may come up from the sessions, because you have investors, again, you have technocrats coming in, but you also have the private sector from other countries, investors coming in looking for opportunities, partnerships, or, yeah. So you have that, but also how do you take advantage of the delegates that are in the country? I am yet to see, maybe it's too early, I don't know, but I haven't seen any packages so far around this is what you can do.
Like offerings.
Yes, and ahead of time. I don't think it should wait for May, because people are planning. So typically, anybody who is planning to come in June right now would be going around the websites, trying to check what can I do in Rwanda, where do you go, where do you eat. So I hope the private sector can take advantage of that. Don't wait for June. Start to put whatever service you'll be providing out there, whether it's accommodation or mini organizing tours for some of the delegates. And again, there will be at different levels. So you have those that have big budgets, but then you have also those maybe students or young people, small budgets. Can we have packages that go across? Yeah, so it's exciting. I'm waiting to see, because the expectation before the projection was close to 10,000. So
10,000.
Yeah, delegates.
Delegates,
yes,
yeah.
delegates.
And I also like the fact that, like you said, in terms of government, in terms of logistics, in terms of infrastructure, it's not something we should really be worried about. We've been ready for 2 years. But it's good to see things that have been really invested in, the hotels, because I don't think a decade ago we'd be looking at an event where we expected 10,000 delegates, Our numbers were always 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 was big. So it's great to know those investments that have already been made are just there waiting for such opportunities like this. And to your earlier point, absolutely agree. I really hope, because a lot of people that are looking at, yes, there's some very key issues that people are going to discuss in the meeting, but really these events, when they happen in countries such as ours, it's a private sector that stands to benefit a lot. And it would really be great to see, even as a Rwandan, I'm not just waiting for non-Rwandans, but packages that are aligned towards tapping into the meeting. And I'm also hoping these packages will stay there after the meeting, for us and for other potential visitors. But I feel like it has the potential to be a boost to the private sector infrastructure, especially in the hospitality and tourism sector. So really looking forward to that.
I really hope we get to see more of that, especially we need a lot of planning around the nightlife.
I know we talked about this on the show last week with RDB and with some of these events promoters, Raul. And I really hope we can be as flexible to, in Charlie's words, like he likes saying, to ensure that people come here and leave with their wallets empty.
I know.
And we have to look at all sectors, you know.
Yeah.
I'm also hoping about that, and I think it's off to a good start. What do you think?
Yes, it is. But also
post-conference, what do you do
yeah,
after?
even post-conference. I mean, the other opportunity, huge opportunity around CHOGM usually is the press from all, you know, from the Commonwealth. So you'll have. I think the site is actually already up for accreditation for the press is already ongoing. So you have, imagine all the press from the Commonwealth coming to Rwanda. So yes, you'll have them interested in government, but also they'll be interested in, you know, ordinary Rwandans, their lives. And so how you position yourself for that. I think it's free marketing. So I'm sure there are people who are thinking about how to take advantage of that. And again, I also don't think they should wait for the press to first arrive. You know,
Absolutely.
They should be reaching out to them before they arrive and saying, look, we think you can speak to, you know, our CEO, or we are trying to do this. How do you, you know, really take advantage of these people being around town?
So really be proactive in terms of media engagement.
Yeah, media engagement.
Because
yes.
it's more or less, you know, good opportunity to help with the brand Rwanda.
Yeah.
With the Rwandan brand. So absolutely agree on the sense that it should be proactive, you know, and yeah, so looking forward to it. And to our viewers, you know, if you have any comments or anything you'd like Brenna and I to address, please put it on using hashtag #TheSquareRW, put it on our platforms, and we'll be reading it out later. So the next topic that our viewers chose, interestingly enough, was the World's Happiness Report Index that was released. It's released on an annual basis, the 2020, the most recent one, basically. And according to this report, I really have a hard time even reading this. But according to this report, Rwandans are the 4th worst globally in terms of unhappiness, ahead of Zimbabwe, Lebanon, and Afghanistan. The unhappiest in the world is Afghanistan. So we're somewhere there with Afghanistan. And I would like to hear from you, Brenna. So the findings by this 10th report by the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and the things that, you know, they look at in putting together this index, if you'll allow me to read, is looking at GDP per capita, social support, healthy life expectancy, freedom, generosity, and corruption. These are the variable factors that the researchers use in explaining the variations in life across the countries surveyed. So my question, Brenna, is what is your take on this report?
I'm unhappy.
Right now, you and I are really not unhappy. So my take to Brenna and also to our viewers is, what is your take on this report? You know, do you think it has an impact on the wellness, the well-being of Rwandan citizens, and our ability in terms of really putting forward sustainable policies for development? What is your overall take on this report? And Rwanda being ranked really, really down there with countries that are post-conflict. I mean,
I know.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. I take a different view to opinion polls because it's difficult when I haven't looked at their set of questions, how they ask, but the structure usually of, you know, opinion polls is not really in depth. So personally, I don't take them too seriously because of that. But that said, of course, when a report is out, it sends a message. Yeah. Now, I was looking at the content of the 2021, and I hope it's the right report, happiness report. What they were measuring this time round that they were really focused on is COVID, assessing how people felt, one, about COVID and how their governments handled COVID. There's a bit of mental health there, and in life in general, well-being. Now, I want to think that perhaps why the ranking was so bad this year, again, I haven't really picked interest in the reports. So this is just one report that I've looked at. If it's COVID, that, assessing people's feelings around COVID, I think there should be no surprises because we had, Rwanda had some of the strictest, I think, of COVID, enforcement. Enforcement of COVID protocols.
Yes.
And I think as a result of that, many, of course, were unhappy as a result.
Yes.
But again, you want to look at what cost.
Yes.
We know that the government has really and always continues to prioritize life over anything else,
And we've had several discussions on that matter on this platform.
Yes. So I guess that if you're unhappy because they are strict on you, but they're protecting you, then maybe it's not such a big deal.
Yes.
Because in the end, I think if we look at today, the rankings in terms of how countries have done with regards to containing the pandemic, Rwanda globally will have the lowest deaths reported, and that is not by accident. It's because of the hard work that went into protecting people. But then you can understand the difficult choice and balance, because it was health or keeping the economy alive, and people sort of live with COVID, and they don't feel the economic shocks as such. We chose to prioritize health, and I think it was the right decision, because remember, there's no replacement for life.
Absolutely.
And we may look back and think maybe if you didn't lose a family member, you may take it lightly. But
there are people who actually lost loved ones.
Yes, people who lost loved ones, I think for them, they don't take it lightly. So there was that assessment of, COVID and the reaction to how they felt. But also we cannot forget that the pandemic has been prolonged. And so many people, there's a lot of uncertainty still. And then the impact of these restrictions. We may recall that up to today, there are people who are still unemployed, who lost jobs just before, at the beginning of the pandemic, and they're still unemployed. You have those that lost their loved ones. So we're still dealing with the shocks of the COVID, pandemic. So when a poll like this comes up, I think you can understand why some people may really feel unhappy. But let's look at the reality outside the report. Life expectancy. Rwanda has, in the region, even for countries that are the happiest, Rwanda does better in terms of life expectancy. 69, I think as of 2019, 69 points towards 70. Now, I will not mention, but anybody interested, go and look at life expectancy in the region. It will tell you something, So for me, if Rwandans are unhappy, yes, it is of concern, but if they're living longer, I think it also shows us that there's a different side of the story that perhaps we need to look at. Because you can only live longer because your life is better. Yes.
And I absolutely agree with you on that. And then another, like you say, looking outside the report, the other index that was used to measure corruption. So personally, I was confused. First of all, this report, it's the 10th, so for 10 years it's been making a mark in countries, how I don't understand. But the other index or indice that was used to measure was corruption levels. And we are known for being one of the least corrupt, zero tolerance corruption in Rwanda. So how that was factored in, again, to me, still, it doesn't make sense.
Again, it's perception.
I hear you on that.
So
Yeah.
it's you're assessing perception, opinion, and it's not the in-depth is not there to really have an understanding of why. But the report is still useful, actually, overall, when you look at some of the recommendations,
Yes.
of what should be done to have a better life. Yeah. But I think it would be misleading to look at the report and make an indictment and say Rwandans are unhappy.
I hear you.
Yeah. So for me, if life expectancy is going up and we're doing much better than most of these countries who are happy, I think we are probably doing more right things, That's one. Then two, the other aspect that the report also talks about is how citizens perceive their governments, and also the response. Now, several studies have shown how the government responded to, they've assessed how different governments responded to COVID. And we know where Rwanda stands in terms of the response, really. Yeah. So, I mean, it's food for thought. You can't dismiss the report. There are people who are unhappy, and for different reasons. Again, up to today, we are still dealing with the shocks of the pandemic. Many people are yet to come out of unemployment. People are still struggling. So, yeah, you can expect that we are beginning to see a bit of hope and light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, we are coming from a very difficult, and again, this week we actually had the central bank release the economic update. And what the governor was emphasizing is that at the moment, even if we are talking about Ukraine and we are kind of diverting attention and getting worried, let's us remember that we are coming from a bigger shock. Yeah, so if we are beginning to see signs of recovery, the economy growing, going back to double digits, then there's optimism.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay. Another part, just before we go to the next part of the conversation, is of the report that I also found interesting was to do with, the happiness report. I don't know if there's a connection per se. I've not had time to really go through it. It's quite dense. But and we talked about this on the show recently, the mental health aspect. The rising rates of suicide in this country are quite alarming, especially amongst our youth. Just this year, when it started, there were a series of people who died by suicide, and it just makes you think as well. Just looking at the mental health aspects, in terms of happiness and adjustment, it's something to definitely factor in. And I know we've spoken about it on the show several times.
Mental health is, again, it's a global problem.
It's not unique to...
Yes, it's not unique to Rwanda, and the pandemic has made it worse. It has made it worse not only because of the different pressures, but also we have had a lot of people live in isolation. This whole movement around remote work. I think there was an assumption that people would be maybe in a place where they're in a family setting, for instance, but there are people who have been on their own. So the pandemic worsened the mental health problem. But for me, I'm encouraged by what I see being done around it. One, everybody accepts that it's a problem, and we must do something about it. And you see that, there's a lot of effort going into what can we do, but it's complex. It needs a lot of resources because, one, creating the pool of experts, mental health experts, to actually deal with the issue. And it also goes along with the recovery. If someone is unemployed, it's difficult to imagine they will have a better mental health. On one hand, you'll say we want them to be resilient, but the reality of life is that it's tough. And so even that is a problem for mental health. But as we see, as the economy recovers now and people are getting back to work, and there's a bit of stability, because also the uncertainty around when the pandemic will end is a problem, not just for business decisions, but also for our well-being. So the more we see a bit of stability now, thanks to the vaccination, I think there's hope, and hopefully that will begin to also be reflected in terms of better mental health. Yeah.
Absolutely. The next topic our viewers also selected, and if we could definitely be, having the tweets coming up lined up, so keep them coming, was to do with the impact of the car-free zones. The impact of the car-free zones, we've been talking about this again on the square. I think everyone has been talking about it. And one of the viewers suggested, the topic, the panel takes on this topic on the recently established car-free zones in Remera and Nyamirambo. And a viewer wrote that the economic intention may be good, but the implementation and monitoring in terms of access, so age limits, to these people, especially with the, alcohol served, the sort of standard operating procedures is lacking. So, in terms of, what is allowed, what isn't allowed, who is allowed there, who isn't allowed, and in the event of, accidents, that may be caused, or fights that may break out, one of the viewers asked us to, just our take on it in terms of the impact. It's just recent, and I hope it's there to stay, but it's good to also analyze the impact so far. So, Brenna, I think Charlie mentioned to us some time back that he's been to one of these car-free zones, the one in Remera. I think you and I are yet to visit.
I know, I haven't been.
We're yet to visit any, but maybe that should change soon. So my question is, Brenna, what are your views regarding the car-free zones and the impact in terms of access, looking at age limits, general standard operating procedures, noise pollution, and that sort of thing? What's your take on these areas?
I think, first of all, we must not lose sight as to why we're having car-free zones.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
One,
true.
it's good for the environment.
Yes.
So whatever we do, we must remember that it's good for the environment. That is one. Number two, it's also part of better, for the well-being, improving the well-being.
Happiness.
It's part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look at how car-free zones have evolved around the world, because Rwanda is not the first country to do this. Many countries have been doing it, but I think in our region, Rwanda is leading, but it's been done elsewhere. And you'll see that, so you have the developed, the advanced countries that have introduced it, again out of a lot of pressure from, they're trying to reduce emissions from big cities. So whether it's a big city like Berlin or London, or, then you have Mexico also trying to do it. So you have a mix of countries that out there that are already doing these car-free zones. And one thing that you see that is important, first of all, is a functioning public transport system. Most of these big cities are trying to encourage the use of public transport. Now, in our context, that is still work in progress.
A reliable public transport system.
Yes, public transport system.
Yes.
That is still work in progress. But again, we cannot say, let's wait to have a fully functioning public transport system for us to have car-free zones. You must make an effort and then gradually. And I also think that the more we have these car-free zones, the more we prioritize improving public transport. Secondly, the issue around what people do within the car-free zone. Right now, for me, I don't think it should be a question of people are getting too drunk, so we should close because people are getting... We are too used to controlling things. I mean, if someone goes to a car, as long as they are an adult, first of all, yeah. If they decide to get drunk, why is that everybody's problem? Because I would imagine, again, I haven't been to to this space to know the reality of it, but if someone is getting drunk, I would imagine the facilities would have people to take care of if they are causing commotion, or, you know, there should be a bouncer to take to do something about anybody who is trying to disorganize other people who are trying to have a good time. Yeah. So I don't understand why people have a problem with people getting drunk in a car-free zone. I don't see why. Yeah. First of all, if we have failed to control alcohol, you know, stop children from having alcohol, that is a whole different issue. Yeah. And how you deal with that. 18, because you see, in most places they will say 18 and above, but there's no one even checking IDs.
To enforce, yes.
You know,
yes.
There's no one doing that. So the knee-jerk kind of reaction to people getting drunk, I think is misplaced, really. It's misplaced. If people can get drunk and get home, that is, you know, because at the end of the day, you really want to have these car-free zones lively. That's number one. Number two, we've talked about it before, that it has to go beyond adult entertainment, and also have these spaces evolve into distant family friendly environments, you know, so that it's not just alcohol, but, you know, you have food, you have
like safe spaces to then bring children to.
Yes, safe spaces for families. Yeah. So we cannot walk backwards. And I think the regulation should not be about, oh, you're drinking so much alcohol. No, I don't think so. Because at the end of the day, if they're drinking so much alcohol, there's someone who's paying taxes.
That's true. And even helping an establishment. But you're right about the moral policing. I think we should look further in ensuring it's safe for everyone. If someone comes there and is inebriated as a grown man or woman, that's a totally different story. It's, you know, people's choices. And in addition to that, we should be looking at how to expound on the infrastructure there to enable families to come through, enable children to maybe even access them. You know, right now it's 4 to 9 p.m. or something. The coffee zones kick off at 4 p.m. I don't see why on weekends, if it can be from 12 p.m. Anyway, I know, you know, around those areas, it also prevents businesses and people. You can't just close all these roads, but, you know, just expound on it. How can we make it safer where we can have children come through, we can have families? So look at how to expound on that as opposed to going backwards. I personally think it's a great start and also you said there's a contribution to the environment, less cars for a particular time on the road. But I think it's a good start, especially looking at upcoming CHOGM and how people post-conference can go to these spaces that we're creating. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more of them, actually. But just better managed and built on is what I'll be looking forward to. Yeah,
and I think we kind of have to allow room for entertainment. For entertainment and perhaps not take life too seriously. To feel that every space needs, you know, regulation.
You know, we've been told we're really excited about regulating things in this country. So when
some
it comes
spaces
to that,
can just evolve. They can just evolve. What you just want to do is, one, ensure safety. Two, ensure that if it's adults, not children. And so if we have spaces that are not, first of all, people just get in and you don't know who's, then it's difficult. It's chaos. It's chaos. But these spaces, I think it's good that we have them. We should have more of them, and
not just also in Kigali, yeah? The rest of the country as well.
Yeah.
Because there's spaces that bring people together. People enjoy spending time socializing, and this is one aspect for 2 years that we've been prevented from doing as human beings because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So if we can have these spaces in different pockets of the country, yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think the idea is they prioritize cities because you want to decongest cities.
But our secondary cities can still benefit.
Yes, of course, secondary cities. But within the city, I think the more we see these car-free zones, public transport is going to have to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's another topic.
To get better.
Yeah, that's another topic, if we have time for, that our viewers asked us to just talk about, our take on it, and where it stands right now, and some of the inroads that are being made by different stakeholders, City of Kigali and that sort of thing. But it's also something to consider. I just want us to go to a Twitter feed and read some of the interesting tweets that are coming in from our viewers. Thank you very much, and keep them coming using hashtag #TheSquareRW. And if you can have the first tweet on our screens, it is from the Dandy, who says, the CHOGM 2022 will be a greatly influential and consequential event, and the fact that Rwanda is hosting under the leadership of President Paul Kagame speaks volumes. Absolutely. AfricaNet looks forward to helping promoting this important event and milestone for Rwanda. I'm assuming that's a plug to the Dandy's company, but yeah, agree with you. Our next tweet is from Amos, who says, Rwanda is set to benefit immensely from CHOGM 2022. Work is well underway to improve the infrastructure and ensure the provision of ample and adequate accommodation for the expected members who will attend. The tourism sector will thereby also be boosted, benefiting the event. Right on with Amos. Our other tweet coming in is from Andy, who says that it might be worth noting that suicide rates in Rwanda are 4 to 5 times higher for men than women. Very interesting detail there. This was with regards to a conversation on the happiness report. We have another tweet coming in also who says, from Amos, who says, we have been through enough and have seen enough. Peace, security, and stability is not negotiable in Rwanda today. We are on the same page on sustaining a peaceful Rwanda, and all these counterbalances the previous World Happiness Index. He has strong thoughts on that. We have other tweets coming in, and this one says, from Mukiza, who says, for one to be happy, you just need a bad memory or be drunk. It looks like we're more sober, so it's a good thing, actually. Yeah, it's interesting to see these responses regarding what we are seeing on, some of the topics. Our other tweet coming in, if you could also have that, is from, Honorable Gasabazi Jean-Marie Vianney, who says, well explained, really. Some people of Rwanda, due to COVID-19 prevention measures enforcement, have lost their jobs, businesses, and some rights they used to enjoy before COVID-19. So no big deal in the report. If they met unhappy citizens, the outcome is more important. Yeah, you have a fan who agrees with with what you're saying. And yeah, keep the tweets coming, and we'll definitely be, reading them later on. Before we conclude, I just wanted us to just touch briefly on the transport issue. It's, I just didn't put it there because I didn't think we had enough time. But Brenna, while we're here, and you've kind of had a segue into it, was with regards to some of the topics our viewers were asking. Can you really talk about public transportation, their complaints on social media, which is a reflection of the complaints of what's happening on the ground, in terms of the transport? Do we need more buses? Do they need to be regulated to be more on time? Do we need more routes? Recently, I think the city of Kigali said that they have put bus stops, and they were putting internet, and they really looked cute and really great. And, I applauded the effort. But, on social media, it was met with some people saying, why? Why is that what we're investing in? Let's invest in having the buses on time. Let's invest in having more buses, and let's invest in having them, more accountable to the people. So the public transport system in Rwanda is really an issue. We are a booming city in terms of Kigali. There's more activity. There's more people, there's more, people going to work, people going to school. So what's your take on, I know it's a conversation where we deserve to have it in addition to the viewers edition, but also with our experts, sector experts, or, people in different institutions that are in charge of this. But, just candidly, between you and I, Brenna, and on behalf of our viewers, what's your take on the transport system? What do you think needs to improve urgently?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, but I think that if we had more senior public officials using public transport, then it would get fixed.
Exactly. Not the big SUVs that we see.
So my beginning recommendation would be maybe the subsidy on that public officials get should be scrapped and and taken to public transport. Yes, because today I think almost every senior public official has. They pay less tax on their cars.
And the loans, the car loans, yes.
So maybe if we take a bit of that.
I think there are public officials looking at you, listening to this show tonight, who are not happy with what you're saying.
If we take a bit of that and allocate it to public transport, we may solve the issue. Yeah. But the idea, I think, is to get more public officials, senior public officials using public transport. Because the moment a minister is late for a meeting because they were, then we'll take it more seriously, I think. But on a more serious note, it's difficult. It's work in progress again, because where we are today, if you look at the public transport, this is not how it was. And it's been improving.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's been improving. But I think we had a big problem because of the pandemic. Most of these operators lost a lot of money.
True.
During the lockdowns.
The two or three lockdowns.
Yes. During lockdowns and even when we started, they were not yet operating at full capacity. Yeah. And really, they've struggled. They've really struggled. So I don't know what is going to happen. Because if there are few people that are trying to invest in the sector are only making losses, then it's difficult to imagine how you'll attract more investments, in that sector. And that's why I feel that I know there's a subsidy already on transport, but beyond that, there's room for a bit of creativity around how to fix the issue, because it can be fixed. These are things that have been done elsewhere. Yeah, and also if you look at the population of Kigali, I don't think it's not yet 2 million.
It depends, because people leave the city sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. So
depending on the hours, but yeah,
it can be done. It's not. It's simply,
not rocket science.
Yes,
I think
it's simply someone somewhere to prioritize it and get it fixed. Yeah. You'll see that I think anybody who has noticed the road network has improved.
Absolutely.
Around the
and
city.
It's still improving because of CHOGM. There are different routes that are opening up ahead of this.
Yeah. So ideally, you would want to see the public transport going in tandem with the roads. Yeah, that is not happening yet. Yeah, so I wish I had an answer. It's a difficult one. But I think if we can take the subsidy away from, and they try to take, and also because it's good for the environment, really. Rwanda has made some big pledges around reducing emissions. So it's hard to imagine how you can reduce emissions when more Rwandans are buying mostly second-hand cars, and out of necessity, because it's difficult to move around. So I've seen a few. There's innovation around electric cars, but still, how many can afford them? Yeah, so it's an issue.
It's not. Yeah, it's not a.
It's an issue, but I think we simply have to walk the talk, especially around the environment. yeah,
Absolutely.
around the environment.
Yes.
The more people don't feel they can trust, they can rely on public transport, the more they will be going to the bank and wanting to get a loan to buy a second-hand car that is terrible for the environment. Yeah, so it's one of those decisions that, difficult decisions, but have to be made. Yeah.
And I like the way you linked it, the transport sector and the, and the environment, whether it's the Ministry of Environment or the Green Fund, how can we look at financing certain things, and I know those facilities are there, financing certain things that enable us to walk the talk when it comes to, improving transportation, but connecting it to the general advantages of doing it for the environment. Definitely something to think about. I know we talk a lot on the square about institutional coordination and not working in silos. So I think this is something that definitely benefits from that. So to our viewers, we're coming to the end of the show. And, if you could share some, if you could keep some of the tweets coming, but I just want us to go to our sort of concluding remarks on this topic. Benham, before I get to you, let me just see if we have a couple of more tweets coming in. Oh, if we actually have one, and I'd like it to be on our screens, if that's possible. If we could have this tweet on our screens, please, so we could read it out. And it's from Dolapo, who says, a suggestion, more transportation firms need to ply the same routes. This way, there would be ample and healthy competition. This would induce those in the sector to be more creative. So yeah, not 3 or 4, but maybe 5 buses using the same routes and really making it easy for a lot of people. We also have another tweet coming in from Hakeem, who says, hi Dan and Berna, for sure in the past years, government of Rwanda has made tremendous progress in public transportation, and of course many projects have been discussed, those still in plans. We should be patient, it's a matter of time. That's a very optimistic Hakeem right there, so thank you for that, and keep the tweets coming in. And yeah, Berna, as we conclude, just you and I on this viewers edition, definitely would have loved to hear from Charles on these topics. We always have fun when it's just the 3 of us with no guests. But yeah, if you could just give concluding remarks, just to recap what you said about CHOGM, your recap on the World Happiness Index, and last of all, just a recap on the car-free zones for the sake of our viewers. And I'll kick off with the CHOGM 2022 concluding remarks from you, Berna.
I think it's a good opportunity. It doesn't happen often, so it's a good time, first of all, to be alive to witness it. Mm-hmm. But
I think we were too young in 2000 when it happened in Uganda.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
I think we need to see it as a business opportunity. Yeah, see it as a business opportunity. But even the networking, there's so much. Yeah, so just pick interest. The sites are already up. CHOGM sites are already up. If you want to attend, you should be getting registered, making sure you get your accreditation. If you're in the private sector, get that website for
Let's position ourselves, especially really, in the private sector.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, it will be a huge boost to the extent that the players in the hospitality and tourism sector will at least recover from some of the losses. With the happiness index, I think there's more. There's more to happiness, or there's more to life, and I'm encouraged from the other statistics around life expectancy. You cannot live longer if you're unhappy. You cannot. If you're unhappy, you're unhealthy, it's unlikely that you live longer. So I'm encouraged that, life expectancy is growing. But that's not to say that there's no room for improvement in terms of the quality, the well-being. Because the other aspect they also look at is the inequality, Yeah. So there's more work around there, bridging the gap. Between those at the top of the pyramid and those at the bottom, there's room. But overall, I think I'm optimistic. Yeah, we are getting out of COVID. It's been a lot of hard work. There are many people who have been working so hard, want to get us vaccinated, see that we reopen. Yeah, so we'll be happy. I'm sure the next reports. will be different.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Regarding the car-free zone, it's work in progress, but we need to fix public transport. We need to fix public transport, and we need to not take life so seriously, let people have fun, enjoy. Just make sure that the right people are in the right places, you know. Yeah. We shouldn't have children getting exposed to some of these things, but if it's adult entertainment, it is adult entertainment. There should be no one really trying to police adult entertainment. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure hosting Viewers Edition, and you know, just the two of us today. And thank you, Brenna, as always, for your fantastic insights, very eloquent and very well explained. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. You know, keep the conversation going using hashtag #TheSquareRW, especially since, you know, we tend to engage on these topics even after the show. To our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee, thank you for always supporting The Square. Have a good night. See you again next week.